welcome back to this amazing Whiplash Wednesday with the PCP Army Bad Batch. We're teamed up with New Comic Book Day. Yeah, that's right. This is Chatting with the Comic Community, episode 14, guys. I'm so excited and so pumped to have this next guest on. She has amazing content. She does a Sunday video with her amazing co-host, Mars, that comic girl, and she has so much knowledge about indie comics and just comics in general. But be careful. She does have a smile that may just break your heart. Let's bring out Jennifer from Comics Will Break Your Heart.
Travis, thank you so much for that introduction.
No problem. I'm so pumped to have you here today chatting with me. As I always do with most of my guests, I just want you to let the people know a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So howdy, friends. My name is Jennifer. I do a little comic channel called Comics Will Break Your Heart. Like you said, with my friend Mars, that comic girl. She's truly the better half of the two of us. She's also got an incredible knowledge. She knows a lot more about DC than I do, and I know a little bit more about Marvel. But every Sunday, we go live and we talk about pickups that we've got that week. We go into, a monthly kind of review where we wrap up the previous month, and then we take a look forward and see what's coming out. And then I also, the other crew that I roll with, Comic Talk Live over on Will the Beast Fitness channel. So really fun to talk with that gang of people every week.
That's amazing. Yeah, the link to your channel, to Comics Will Break Your Heart, and Marsden, that comic girl, is down below in the link in the description down below. So let's get started. Like, you didn't start with reading comic books. You started with reading trade paperbacks. Tell me a little bit about how your transition from trade paperbacks to comics was.
Yeah, so when I was in high school is when I really started reading like comic books, and a lot of them were Vertigo. When I was in middle school, I started becoming a very avid reader, reading things like Tamara Pierce's Alana series, Harry Potter, lots of like kind of fantasy books especially. And I got introduced to Neil Gaiman, who wrote American Gods, which is hands down one of my favorite books. And the book that I got introduced to was actually Neverwhere. And so then I ended up reading American Gods, Stardust, a couple of other books that he had written. And then it wasn't until about high school that I had a teacher who introduced me to Sandman and a lot of those other Vertigo titles like Fables, Transmetropolitan, and some DC stuff. And so at that point, when I was in high school, like 20 years ago, I was pretty much just reading trade paperbacks. And I even had a friend at the time who was picking up Fables single issue by single issue. And I remember him telling me, don't ever get addicted to single issues. And well, Matt, if you're watching, here I am 20 years later and I'm ruined.
That's amazing. Like, and so what was like the first comic book, like single issue, that you picked up?
It was probably, I actually don't think that I recall. I should probably remember that, but I think that I went, probably picked up something like Fables. I probably had to be honest, like 100%, I had no clue what the hell I was doing. I was probably just picking stuff up off the dollar bin and been like, ooh, there's a number one or something. And I do remember very, very vaguely, even before this, my mom had gotten, I think, a Spider-Man comic for me from not a grocery store, a convenience store, and I don't recall reading it or anything like that. And it's long gone, so I couldn't even tell you what it was. But what I like to tell people is that after I graduated high school, I was really invested into like comic books and reading. But it wasn't until I moved to South Carolina in 2012 where I fell in love with my local comic book store. So really shout out to Tangled Web in South Carolina. Daniel just curates this amazing shop, and he was just so kind and really just a really kind, amazing person, and who really like opened up his arms to the community. So I'm really thankful for that, because that's when I started reading Image Comics, is in 2012, especially with Saga coming out, and then you got stuff like Descender and East of West and all of those Image titles.
Yeah, actually, I just started reading East to West. I got through the first volume.
Oh,
I really enjoyed it.
Hickman with East of West, to me, Jonathan Hickman writes comic book poetry in East of West. And like, obviously, he had done some stuff before that, but like East of West, I see so much of that in like the Hoxpox X-Men stuff that's going on, and all some of his like newer stuff. I love his style of writing.
Yeah, at first I was like hesitant of that book because like you look at the cover of volume one and it looks like a Western, and I'm not that big into like the Western type stories. So that's like
Hmm.
what put me off. And then I got
Yeah.
into it and I was like, oh, this is nothing like a Western.
Yeah, like it's kind of
So
it's Western influenced a little bit, because the premise is basically like the story takes place in this like way future where the South had won the Civil War instead of the North America, and so but it just takes you on this like really wild like sci-fi ride, and it's I like I said, it's poetry.
that's what sold me was like the sci-fi, like because when you
Hmm.
get into too much Western, that's what
Yeah,
drives me away. Like I can
yeah.
watch like um, what was that Westworld? Westworld I can
Oh,
watch
oh, you
because it's not
can?
too.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not too heavy on the Western type feel because it does like change up to like
Yeah.
different areas. Like there's not just Westworld, there's different types of worlds. I never watched the movie, I just watched the TV show.
Oh yeah, I don't think I've ever watched the movie, but the TV show was so good.
So you did say that you read like some Harry Potter books, so like you were
Yeah,
reading actual books before you were reading trade paperbacks and comics and that. Like
100%,
talk a
yeah.
little bit about that because like I see your bookshelf and it's just
Hmm.
like filled with books.
So this is my these are my trades right here, and I've actually like you probably notice on my Sunday show, like especially if I do a little haul video, I'm like, hey, there was a really good sale, and I ended up buying 20 books. There's just like stacks of like books right here. However, and I have a very small apartment. I have a 400 square foot apartment, and there are about three bookshelves on the other side of the apartment that have it's just full of books. I really love a range of when I'm heavy reading like literature books, or non-comic books, non-graphic novels. I find that I have to switch up between a couple genres. So normally it's like science fiction and fantasy, and then I need like actual science books. So those are usually the two that I like teeter totter between.
Have you ever like? Of course, you probably read like Outsiders by S.E. Hinton and that. Have you ever gone down a
Mm.
road of like you never read that?
No, mm-mm. I
Oh,
probably should, because it's like a classic.
yeah, like the movie came out. Like it was actually in my junior high. We had to read The Outsiders, and
Hmm.
then we watched the movie as well. And I fell down a rabbit hole, and I was reading like everything S.E. Hinton was coming out with, like Rumblefish. This was then. That was then. This is now type thing, and I love those books.
I'm like mentally like typing this down. Okay.
Just watch this show on the replay.
Now that I think that as an adult, my attention span, I feel like I listen to more audiobooks, or I just don't read as much. I feel like I can read comics, I can read graphic novels and things like that. But then when it comes down to sitting and reading a book, it's a little bit tougher for me. So I feel like audiobooks and podcasts are a little bit easier for me. So I may try to get the audiobook for that.
Yeah, I agree because like once you go from like reading a book to reading comics, you feel like you get a lot more comics read than a book. You
Yep.
feel like you're getting nowhere
Yeah.
compared to reading comics. So,
Yeah.
and
Last July, because I ended up breaking my foot, and the pandemic, and there was a really good sale at Powell's, a local bookstore here. So I ended up reading 100 graphic novels in 1 month, and it everyone's like, "How did you do it?" And I'm like, "Okay, well, calm down. It was graphic novels, 2, I'm literally like laid up in bed. I took like a vacation from work. And 3, I don't have kids. I feel like I don't have kids is like the the way that I'm able to read as much.
Yeah, especially with the pandemic, nothing like every show was like off the air, and that you really
Yeah.
had nothing to do, especially with a broken foot. You can't really go out and do much.
No, and it's not like there was much that was open either.
Yeah. And audiobooks is just great too, because like you
Yeah.
can just sit there, relax, go for a walk while listening to an audiobook and just
Hmm.
enjoy it.
Yep, for sure.
So moving on, you said you were like read some Marvel or was given a Spider-Man. Did you grow up with those cartoons at all? Like what were like your
No.
top 5 cartoons growing up?
Growing up, I don't recall watching a lot of cartoons, or at least I don't recall the ones that I did watch. Like, I know that I watched them, but I feel like I remember coming home from middle school, and I remember going home and watching Xena and Hercules. And I did not like Hercules, but I really liked Xena, and that was a blossoming for me, as it were, seeing Lucy Lawless and her relationship with Gabrielle, or Xena and Gabrielle. So I remember like going home and watching that. And then when I got into high school, I do remember being dialed a little bit more into like cartoons, but it was anime. So I'd go home and I remember being obsessed with Inuyasha. Inuyasha, Dragon Ball. I forget all of the other like Cartoon Network stuff that would come out.
Yeah, I loved Inuyasha.
Yeah.
Like that was like every night
Hmm.
after school and stuff. Like we'd come home and there was like first it was Radio Free Roscoe, which you probably don't know. It's a Canadian
Uh-uh.
show, and then it would be Inuyasha. So like those were
Okay.
my 2 shows I'd watch before bed. I loved
Oh,
it.
excellent. That's great. Yeah, like I said, I don't recall like watching Saturday morning cartoons. My like Saturday mornings and Sunday mornings, um, growing up in Florida, I feel like I was a beach kid. Like my mom would take us to the beach every weekend, so I feel like it was like, wake up, we're going to the beach, instead of wake up and watch cartoons. And now I'm just like, um, a pale person living in the Pacific Northwest with like no sunshine.
I get that because like I could literally walk like 2 minutes and I'll be at a beach
Hmm.
here and that. I go walking down the boardwalk a lot, usually at night, so I don't. It's not too hot,
Yeah.
but uh, even growing up, like we still loved cartoons and toys, and that's what drove us. Like
Hmm.
Street Sharks, Biker Mice from Mars, and that they all had the figures as well, and so.
That's so cool.
So you say you're into sci-fi.
Yeah,
I know, and Robbie loves this about you too. That you're a big Star Trek girl.
I am. I'm a very big Star Trek girl. Yeah. I have on my side here, I mean, obviously you can't see all my tattoos. You can see the ones that are like from mostly in my arms. But I have on my side, I have a tattoo of "Live Long and Prosper" in Vulcan calligraphy. So it's like a really pretty, like linear swirly pattern right down on my side.
So you're no lie.
Yeah.
You're a true
Yeah,
true Star
I'm a
Trekkie.
trekker. Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
So like, what was your first introduction to Star Trek?
Once again, I didn't find Star Trek until a little bit later in life. And I do recall, when I was in high school, I do recall going to my dad's house. He lived far away, so I'd have to like drive there or fly there, whatever it was. And I remember watching Star Trek, and I'm pretty positive it was Deep Space Nine. I'm just going to go ahead and say this really quick. When I was in high school, I was I was a kind of a bad kid. Like, I didn't pay attention in school. I like loved doing art, so that like was my focus more than anything else. And I like skipped school a lot, and partied a little bit too much. So there's a lot about high school and middle school that I just do not remember. So I'm fuzzy on some details there. I'm a much better kid now, I guess. Anyways, in high school, I do remember like there was a summer and my dad was watching Star Trek. I I'm pretty sure it was Deep Space Nine or The Next Generation. I didn't like it because I was just like, eh. Like my dad's watching it. It's not cool. Whatever parents are doing, it's not cool. And then of course, as an adult, I picked. It was really when I started falling in love with Star Trek.
Yeah, I was the same way with like my stepdad would watch it all the time and that, and I'd
Mhm.
be like, this is just a bunch of dudes talking.
This is just
Like
a whole
I'm
bunch
not
of
into it.
yeah. And okay, so I also if anyone asked me for the longest time, what's your favorite series? I'd be like, duh, Next Generation. And they'd be like, what? You don't like Deep Space Nine? And I'm like, no. I hate Deep Space Nine. I hate the Ferengis so much. And now as an adult, I've probably watched the whole Deep Space Nine series, like at least fully, at least 5 times. I love Deep Space Nine so much. It's hands down my favorite series.
I should actually go back. Like I've never gone back and tried to watch
Ah,
Star Trek. I watched the movies. I've
mhm.
enjoyed them. But maybe I should give that a try. That and everybody keeps trying to push Battlestar Galactica on me.
Battlestar Galactica is a beast. I have tried to watch that first episode about 10 times, and I think that I just lose interest and something happens. And I have tried to tackle Battlestar Galactica so much, and I've never been able to like catch it, I guess. And that's why I've gone back and watched Deep Space Nine a million times.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to try. Like you say, like Deep Space Nine is like the best Star Trek to go
in
back and
my
watch.
in my opinion, yeah, I love it. Absolutely love it. Captain Cisco, love it. And Discovery gets a lot of shit, but Discovery is also one of my favorite. Like it's like Deep Space Nine, Discovery.
And with Battlestar Galactica, did you, like I know that there was like the original and then the remake, and I think the remake was better. I'm not
Hmm.
sure. Like somebody can let me know in
Yeah,
while
I
watching this.
we want to know
Which one was it that you watched, the original or the remake?
the remake. Yeah, maybe that's what I need to do. Maybe that's the like thing that'll click is if I go back and watch the original and then go and watch the remake. Who knows? Maybe that's the key that unlocks Battlestar Galactica for me. And then we'll do a follow up episode, and I'll be like, dude, have you gone and watched Battlestar Galactica? It's so good. I got a Battlestar Galactica tattoo. No, I'm just kidding.
It's on my other side.
Yeah.
Uh, so another like sci-fi that everybody likes to grasp onto is what's it, Doctor Who? Are you
Yeah.
into that at all?
Hmm. It's been a couple of years. I haven't kept up with the Peter Capaldi or the Jodie Whittaker Doctor stuff, but I fell in love with Doctor Who with the Ninth Doctor, Christopher Eccleston. Um, Definitely, I know like everyone has their favorite Doctor, but I feel like Christopher Eccleston is one of mine just because I think he's underappreciated. What about you? Do you like Doctor Who? Do you have like your Doctor?
I haven't watched Doctor Who, but I know people
Okay.
like it's another show that people are like. But then you say Doctor, like favorite Doctor. There's more than one
Mhm.
Doctor.
Yeah, okay. Whew. So Doctor Who started in the 60s, I believe it was 63. And the actors for the Doctor would change because he's a Time Lord and can never um he can die after he does so many iterations, kind of like a cat has like 9 lives, but the Doctor has more. So there's all of these different actors who've played the Doctor. It started in the 60s. It took a pretty good hiatus in the 80s and 90s. And then in the early 2000s, it got rebooted. And the actor Christopher Eccleston ended up being the ninth iteration of the Doctor. And then you had David Tennant, and then you had Matt Smith, and then you had Peter Capaldi, and then Jodie Whittaker. So there's been several iterations. I think that Jodie Whittaker is the 13th Doctor. Is my math correct? I know you're probably just like, okay, like more than one Doctor. Got it.
Yeah, so I guess you're in it. Like when did you start watching Doctor Who? You said like you're the ninth
Mhm.
Doctor, so would that be the
Yeah.
ninth season?
I think that I started watching it. in right after I graduated high school. So I graduated high school in 2006, so it must have been like 2007 when I started watching it. Yeah.
And you said the Ninth Doctor, who was that? David Tennant?
The Ninth Doctor is Christopher Eccleston. Yeah. If
Christopher.
my doctor math is correct, and Christopher Eccleston only was there for about one season. The production value, because it was just starting up again, the production value honestly wasn't that great, especially compared to later seasons. And I think that David Tennant, who took over for Christopher Eccleston, is much better looking. So I think that he really had a draw. And so I think that David Tennant is really like a lot of people's favorite doctor. David Tennant and Matt Smith are like the two doctor iterations that everyone seems to love.
I remember seeing like controversy about the woman doctor, that a lot of
Yeah.
people didn't enjoy her.
Yeah. I didn't watch the so yeah, like I said, like it goes from like actor to actor playing, and the doctor before Jodie Whittaker, who's played by Peter Capaldi, I think that I just stopped watching at that point, and it was hard for me to keep up. So I'm like, I need to watch the Peter Capaldi stuff before I go to Jodie Whittaker, even though I know that's not how it works. I've watched like two or three of the first episodes with Jodie Whittaker, but haven't kept up. Yeah. I
So
don't know why
you're
there's
you're huge.
controversy. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people said that they didn't like her, and
Hmm.
that I'm not sure all about
Yeah.
that. I'm not really that
I,
big into Doctor Who or Fallen. I just
yeah.
remember seeing an article saying uh, they didn't enjoy her, and like, didn't she just last one season?
No, I think she was there for two or three. I think that in 2018 is whenever she first started playing the Doctor. It was late 2018, and then I think that um, maybe up until last year. So at least 1 to 2 seasons. Yeah.
So you're a huge sci-fi person. Like you
Hmm.
love your TV shows, like
I
your Star
do.
Trek and that. Like, what are some of your favorite sci-fi movies?
Ooh, so probably the biggest one is going to be The Fifth Element. Like hands down, that
Love
is one of my
Fifth
favorite
Element.
sci-fi movie, like favorite sci-fi movie of all time. Um, of course, I'm a big fan of Dune. But the 1984 movie is kind of like tragically not great, but it's still one of those. I don't even know if I want to call it a cult classic, but I've also got a couple of Dune tattoos. Um, yeah, Fifth Element. I always go back to that. That's one of my favorite movies. What about
Yeah,
you for movies?
well, I love the Fifth Element. Didn't quite understand it when I first watched it as a kid,
Hmm.
because like I
Yeah,
watched a lot of these movies as a kid, and that just
yeah.
older friends and like watching movies like that. Um, but I'm not gonna lie, like I was probably 10 maybe when Star Wars came
Okay.
out, so that was like my
Damn.
first sci-fi movie that I really got into.
Oh wow. Yeah, I
Like Star
remember.
like
Sorry. Go on.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say I remember when I was in middle school whenever the new Star Wars movies were coming out, and I couldn't be bothered with them. And then once again, as an adult, I went and watched went and watched all of them.
Yeah, like I remember being like sat in my room. I don't know if I was being punished or what. Like kind of looking back at it, like I was like forced to watch the trilogy in my room, like 6 or 7 years old, and
Oh goodness, you're like jokes
it
on
just
you. I'm a nerd now.
and I remember I didn't like it. Like I didn't read, like words were coming down, and I'm 6, and I'm
Yeah.
trying to keep up with it, and I'm just like, okay, now everything's lost. I felt it really boring, but like
Hmm.
so when Star Wars Episode 1 came out, that was my real falling in love with Star
Yeah.
Wars type deal,
Hmm.
and then push aside Star Trek. But
Yeah.
I'll give it a try. I'll give Star Trek a try.
I love it. I think that one of the like clear differences between the two fandoms is I feel like everyone in like people who are like much more in the Star Wars sphere talk about how much like they hate, oh, I hate the 1 through 3. Like, those are horrible, those are trash, and like, you've got to love the original and all of that. And I feel like when it comes to Star Trek, like, one of the kind of like differences is like everyone just has their like personal favorite that's like, I love this movie, or I love this TV series. And I feel like a lot of Star Wars fans like hate Star Wars, like low key hate Star Wars.
It just brings me back. Do you remember the movie Fanboys,
Um,
where they're trying to go and see the episode 1 for the first time, and even
I do, yeah,
yeah, that
because that
was
one
that was
came
a
out
fun
in like
movie.
2006, 2007, I think, or maybe it was
Yeah,
later. Yeah,
I think it was, yeah, it was around the 2000s. It was definitely before 2010.
yeah.
That was a fun watch. You had like Star Trek people in there as well, and then
Hmm.
fighting in that. It just brings me
Yeah,
back to that.
love it.
So, are you into figures at all? Like collecting toys, figures?
Try to do this. I am into collecting figures. So they're all boxed up right now. My tiny apartment cannot handle like having a big display of them. Like, I don't have like a dedicated space. So for now, they're all just in boxes up there. But yes, I do like statues and figures. I wish that I had like a dedicated space for them, but
So,
I
how did
don't.
your toy collecting start? Like, are you just like sporadically picking up figures that you enjoy, or is it like one
Yeah.
series?
So I feel like most of the ones that I've purchased have definitely been. I think that there's a lot more Marvel figures that are just readily available. So I typically end up picking those up. So like Gwenpool, Ironheart, um, uh, oh my goodness, Jubilee, Gwenpool, also Angela, X-23, Jane Foster, Thor. I've got a little Jubilee one. I've got Magic. And then I've probably got like 3 or 4 Batwoman statues, and a couple of Batman statues. But my partner is a really, really big fan of Thanos, so we also have like um, five or so Thanos statues as well.
So you're in it. You're not just collecting toys. You're collecting statues.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep.
Like how big of statues? Like, are they
Oh,
fairly
usually
good
just
size?
smaller. I wish that I wish that I had space. And I mean, I say money, but I just spend a lot of like dumb money whenever I can
DB
on this
money.
stuff. That DB money, yep, you know it. And so like I don't know, I like the bigger statues, but sometimes they just get too big where I feel like if I got one that was that like large, it would have to be my favorite. Like, it would have to be like, that's the one I'm going to spend $600-700 on. And I don't think I've decided what that should be.
So a giant swamp thing.
A giant swamp thing, and there is actually a sideshow. And I don't know. I think when I saw it was like $2,000, and it's like, okay, do I want to get a low grade House of Mystery or House of Secrets 92, or do I want to go ahead and get a Swamp Thing action figure or statue? So
You fallen hard for Swamp Thing.
I
Just
love Swamp Thing.
and you got, it was only after Rom V introduced you to the character and doing this, or were you
Yeah.
reading who was it, Mark Wade?
Alan Moore, I think, is like when I think about like who wrote Swamp Thing. Of course, it was Len Wein who created. But when I think about like who really did it with the character was uh, Alan Moore. And so that's the iteration that I love the most for sure. I love what Rom V has been doing with Swamp Thing. Like, you know that I love Rom V. Like, I talk about Rom V every chance that I get. Rom V, I know that you're watching because we're best friends. And yeah, so anyways, hi Rom V. I really love your work. I would also, I've had the wonderful chance to interview Rodney Barnes, who wrote Philadelphia. I've been able to interview him twice with my friend Comic Chop News, Dan. And Rodney Barnes is a really big Swamp Thing fan. So I really want to campaign like hashtag Rodney Barnes for Swamp Thing, because I hope that after Rom V writes Swamp Thing, we can get Rodney Barnes writing Swamp Thing. So hashtag Rodney Barnes for Swamp Thing.
You heard it, everyone.
Mhm.
Hashtag Rodney Barnes for Swamp Thing.
Yeah. Yep.
I was just actually So like, what was your first thing you read by Ram V? Because like I just got this by
Mhm.
from John,
Oh, my
so
favorite book.
I'm
Absolute
just so,
hands down favorite book. That is the book that got me into Ram V. I may have read These Savage Shores before that book, and maybe a couple of um, other things, but that was the book that I'm like, Ram V is now one of my favorite writers.
yeah, I'm a
Yep.
little bit into it, and that like, does it get more sci-fi or like spiritual in a way?
A little bit more spiritual, because it's about a man who is a music teacher, and he has to go back home because his mother's health is deteriorating, and so he's confronted with this past, and like really the past that he's confronting is like, did I take care of my mom and my family enough? And I had all this talent for music and I squandered it. And so, like, really, those are like the demons that the character is tackling. And like, literally, that book I could not put down, and it still haunts me. It is fantastic.
Yeah,
That was my favorite book of 2020.
what I'm getting from it is like it's kind of like it's like him kind of self-discovering himself,
Yeah.
but like that's an alright story and that, but like I do like the fact that they do implement kind of spiritual type, kind of
Yeah.
like or not sci-fi. I keep going back to that kind of like ghost and spirits and type.
Yeah, like supernatural type stuff more than sci-fi. And like I said, Ram V, hands down, one of the best horror writers out right now. And that book really was like dialed me into, okay, like I need to read everything that this dude is writing. And here I am, literally picking up everything.
Are you excited for him to be writing Venom?
Yeah, I caught a little bit of Venom stuff last year, especially with the King in Black event that was going on, and then of course I picked up the 200th slash, I don't know, 30 whatever issue of Venom it was. So I picked that up, and I think that Donny Cates left a very good mark for Rom V and Al Ewing to pick up Venom. I'm actually excited about it. I've never been a big Venom fan, and now I'm actually excited to read that.
Yeah, I don't pick up a lot of Marvel, not because I don't want to. It's just I can only pick up so much, and I'm picking
Yeah,
up a lot of DC because that's where my heart is DC, and then I'm picking up a lot of indies as well.
yeah, yep.
And
I find that like this year, I am picking up a lot of DC as well, and I'm definitely going to blame Mars for that influence. Like I've liked DC well enough, but now I'm just a little bit more dialed into the week by week, month by month stories.
speaking of Mars, like I really
Mhm.
want to deep dive into like you and her relationship. Like, how did you
Mhm.
guys end up meeting?
Yeah, so I think it was just over Instagram, and the I had been doing weekly shows with my friend Dan, and we also do over on Comic Chop News, and we do a graphic novel book club. And I think that there was a week where we're like, hey, let's go ahead and invite Mars on, and then she was on with us for one of our book clubs, and then I'm like, I love Mars so much. She is like my counterpart, and she is the ice to my fire. Like, you know, like each week we just kind of like deep dive into the books that we're reading, the books that we love, the books that we hate, the creators who we think like the smell of their own farts. So, you know, like we get into it, in a lot of time, I think a lot of times our like opinions about things, depending on like books and movies and things like that, can differ. But I think that like ultimately our goal and ultimately like our mission is so in tune. And there, when I had been doing weekly shows with Dan, I had started this channel last May, and I just thought that this channel was going to be more of like a personal thing for me, but it turns out I don't really have a personality outside of comic books. I was like, okay, I'm going to maybe just go live and talk about comic books or something. And I've tried to do edited videos on my channel, and those don't really work. And there was one week where I'm like, hey, Mars, do you want to join me for a live stream? And she said no. And I'm like, okay. And then the next week, I'm like, hey, you want to go live with me this week? And I think that she said no again. And then like the third week, I'm like, hey, I'm going to go live. Please come with me. And she finally did. And then we started going live every Sunday. And then finally, I'm like, do you want to make this like the real thing? Like, do you want to go steady with me? And she did. And now we talk every single Sunday. I mean, more than that, because like we literally text each other every day.
I'm glad that she said yes, because
Yeah.
the dynamic between the two of you is
Yeah.
just great. Like, you guys just seem like great friends, just chatting about what you're loving this week, what you're not picking up, and like
Yeah.
there's so much truth to it. And it's just it kind of sometimes feels like we are just spying on you guys, like just chatting, like because like
That's
it's it,
excellent.
it's just that natural between the two of you just chatting, and that it's just like we're
Yeah.
eavesdropping on your guys' conversation.
Mm-hmm. It I'm so glad that we got like connected, and like I said, I think it was just initially over Instagram. We started like following each other, and then like I said, I had been doing a show with Dan over on Comic Chop News, and then Mars and I'm like, this has to be a thing, and I love it. I love Sundays so much.
All right, let's get into like how I like, because I didn't just find your channel, I was
Hmm.
introduced to your channel from somebody else as well as other channels. And that I met you through Hero and the Kid, but now they
Oh
go
yeah,
by
Will the
Will the
Beast
Beast
Fitness.
Fitness.
Yeah.
So like you started off doing a show with them every Friday, and that's how I got introduced to you,
Hmm.
Bearded. Ryan I already knew from Comic Tom,
Okay.
and that I got introduced to Jason, but he's no longer on there, as well
Yeah.
as Sammy. So I'm so glad that you were on that show, because it introduced me to you and Bearded and everybody else. So
Yeah.
how did that all become?
So, Sean is the dad, Will is the kid, and Sean messaged me and said like, "Hey, we're doing like a little segment, and like they had done edited videos for a little bit about like books that are coming up and things like that, and he's like, "Hey, we're gonna be doing a like kind of a segment on variant covers. Can you talk about like the variant covers that you like?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And so, of course, I just like kind of like railed into how much I love David Mack, and those are usually some of my favorite covers. So then was a part of that, and then he's like, "Hey, we've kind of got this like gang of people who are going to talk comics. Like, would you want to join us?" And honestly, when he messaged me, I'm like, I'm already doing the show on Friday with Comic Chop News. I'm kind of doing a show. I think at that point, maybe I was doing a regular Sunday show. And I was like, I'm really not sure. Like, I may be able to make it, I may not. Like, it may be on a week by week basis. But it's been, what was that, maybe October, November, maybe longer than that. And I've missed a couple weeks, but we've been going ever since. And what a crew, man! Like, I love those folks so much.
Yeah, and like when you started on that, like I think you were not even at 500 yet, but and now you're sitting here, you're almost at 900. Like
I'm
it's
over.
crazy.
It's over 900. It's um each day I look, it'll be like, okay, I'm at 907, and then today I'm like, okay, I'm at 905. Like if I piss someone off, and then it'll be like 906, and then I think it dropped down to 905. So I'm like teetering right there.
Oh
Um,
man, you're so
yeah,
close to like
yeah,
1,000 now. Like guys, go
yeah.
sub up to her. Like she
Oh,
does have an amazing Sunday show. It's live too,
yeah,
so go join in the chat. I'm always there.
yeah,
I know John Thomas, the AI, is always there. Um, and it's just a fun Sunday show.
yeah. I talk about Mars really being like the better of the duo. But seriously, the people who like roll up in the chat, and like especially when Sheena comes along, I love Sheena so much. So if you're watching, Sheena, I love you, and we're gonna get you on the show. And yeah, the people who join the show and comment, like, that gives me life. So shout
There
out to
is
everyone else.
there is sometimes I do have to miss the show because like I have a show I do with Big Herm Collectibles and that,
Hmm.
but like sometimes like he'll catch me in that looking down and like in your chat as well while I'm live with him. So
Oh, that's excellent. Well, then maybe I'll try to like while I'm going live, like Mars will be like just doing a deep dive into a character, and I'll like I try to like handle the chat as much as I can. So maybe I'll just like hop in over. Howdy, friends.
howdy, Jen. And that thing is going to become your handle is hashtag howdy friends.
Hashtag howdy, friends. Yeah.
So every time you see Jennifer in a chat anywhere, just go or say hi or station Jennifer hashtag howdy friends.
Hashtag howdy, friends. Yep.
That and what else? Like the Swamp Thing one. Who is it? Swamp Thing?
Hashtag Rodney Barnes for Swamp Thing, man. I This current run, like I said, is being written by Rom V, but it's only a 10 issue maxi series, and so I'm really, really hoping that I think that Rodney Barnes would be like the next person to write Swamp Thing.
So I'm not familiar with Rodney Barnes. Like, what has he done?
I would say that the biggest thing that Rodney Barnes is known for is because he's written some like television shows and things like that. But Philadelphia is probably the thing that he's known for. Yeah.
Just that one thing. Like, what TV shows has he done?
Now I feel bad because I can't even remember what the TV shows are. He also, you know what? I think that did he also write the Lando comic book that came out, or he was maybe a part of that. Um, he's working on an upcoming TV show that's based off of a book called Things That Make White People Uncomfortable. I think I'm butchering the name of that. I'm paraphrasing, but he's currently involved with that. And then obviously there's a Philadelphia show coming out that he's working on. He also, sorry, usually I have the book right here, but he also recently did a Quinn Credible book. I don't really know too much about Quinn Credible, but I knew he was writing it, and then I saw it in my shop last week, and I'm like, I need that. I love Rodney Barnes.
Yeah, it's funny how a lot of like people that have been writing TV shows are like coming and actually doing comics. Like Carla Nappi.
I was just about to say Carla Nappi, who did Duplicant. What an excellent person.
Yeah, she was actually on your channel, wasn't she?
She wasn't on mine, but I have interviewed her with Gary B, the casual comic guy, as well as Comic Chop News with Dan. I've gotten a chance to talk to her. I really want to start doing more like creator interviews. I feel like that's like a natural next step for my channel, and I've done them kind of like sporadically. But I feel like I don't have the space for it yet, like the mental space and the like show like channel space, I guess.
Well, it'd be cool like if you and Mars could like think of somebody that you'd both enjoy to have on the show and just like have them as a special guest on a
Oh,
Sunday show.
we have our dream list, and of course, like Romvi is 100% there. So Romvi, if you're watching, please come on our show and talk to us. There's a couple other people that were like, this is like our dream list. So I don't know if we'll like eventually just like get off our butts and like kind of do the work. But there's a couple people that I'd really love to see.
Yeah, and I'm guessing Mark Millar is on that list.
Yeah. Mark Millar, Tom King, Rick Remender, Scott Snyder, man. Whew. There's a couple of man. I really hope that none of them ever watch my show because
I'm just gonna clip like
just
you
clip
naming
that.
off the characters that you or the people that you want
Yeah.
on your show, and then I'll just send it to them. They'll be hitting me up like, "Hey, I heard you wanted me on your show," and it'd be Mark Millar. Could
Here's
you
the thing
imagine
is,
him and Mars like?
yeah. Right. And what's so funny is that like I'm not a big fan of Tom King, and I've kind of like smack talked. Mars is like friends with Tom King. Like they message each other regularly and like know each other from like conventions, and they're like besties. They go way back. So I think that it would be really, really funny to have Tom King on the show, and just them talking and me just like trying to be nice and just being like, mm-hmm, okay. So
Oh man, that'd be so hilarious.
yeah,
But I really do hope that you get Rom V and
yeah.
like do you pick up any Kickstarters at all? Like
I
I
do. Yeah. Um, I don't, so funny story that you mentioned that. Every single time I try to, I do Kickstarter, for some reason, Kickstarter does not like my address. And so every time I back a Kickstarter, I get a message from the creator that's like, hey, we sent you your book and it got sent back to us. And like, or like, hey, like for some reason, UPS just doesn't like your address. And I just got a message from it's Ennead was the book that I backed, and they messaged me and they're like, yeah, your book came back, and like we Googled your address, and I'm like, oh, that feels kind of weird, but you know my address anyways. But long story short, yes, I do I do back Kickstarters. Yeah. The last one that I did, I don't know if I have a copy of it, was Beef Bros by Aubrey Sitterson, and absolutely love it. He's writing The Worst Dudes that's like currently serialized right now.
Worst Dudes. I heard of
Mhm.
that one as well as Space Bastards. I heard Space Bastards is really good.
Yeah, I didn't catch on to Space Bastards, and I think now that I think about it, I think Aubrey Sitterson did come out. Yep. I haven't actually read my stack of books this week, but he's doing Savage Hearts. So I'm really excited to read that as well.
Nice. Yeah, I backed a few Kickstarters one Spider Squirrel. I've had the creator on my channel as well, Charlie McElvey, and that it was kind of like not taking itself too seriously. It's kind of like
Hmm.
Booster Gold in that it's superhero world. He's
Hmm.
jumping through different realities, and the funny thing is, like different realities that he jumps through, it's done by a different artist. So that was really
Oh,
fun.
that is really cool.
So like, what do you? All right, we're coming close. I just want to say
Yeah,
thank you, and I'm honored to have you on my channel. And that, guys, go sub up to her and her lovely co-host Mars, that
please.
comic girl. Do you have anything coming up?
So today, you and I, we're talking on Friday, and Friday's usually the day that I go on with Comic Talk Live over on Will the Beast channel. So that's where you can find me on Fridays. On Sundays, you can find Mars and I chit chatting, usually in the morning, usually around like 9 or 10 a.m. Pacific time. So that's maybe going to be like 11, 12, 1 Eastern. Um, and then I do graphic novel book club with Comic Chop News. And then the next book that we are going to talk about is going to be Descender by Jeff Lemire. And then it's been a little bit more sporadic, but I've also been talking with Brandon with Comics Kings. We're going to do like an indie deep dive on crossover. I think we're going to end up doing that this upcoming week.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
So
So I
make sure
do
to
like
check that
a
out.
little bit of everything here and there. I have a couple of ideas for edited videos, but I'm really bad at doing edited videos. So it's really just, um, getting the motivation to do those. So I'm hoping to I've got a couple of ideas for like series that I want to do on the channel. So looking forward to getting my butt into gear and actually doing those because I think it's going to be really, really fun.
Yeah, I don't like doing edited videos. Like any edited videos that I have, like my videos with Second Sight Publishing Comic Rundown, I
Mhm.
just film a video and then I send it to Tomorrow Cinema and I say, "Can you edit that for me?"
Mhm.
So station
Oh,
Manny.
doing the good work.
So, would you like to say any comments or like any comics that you think people should be reading besides Saga?
Yeah, so Saga for sure people should be reading. You know it. Like I said, please read anything and everything by Ram V. So right now Ram V is doing Swamp Thing, Catwoman. I feel like there's a couple of other like short stories that they're doing, like read Blue and Green, read These Savage Shores. Um, I feel like whenever I think about like what's like the one thing that I feel like people should read, and that's always so hard because everyone's styles are a little bit different. So I think that yes, Saga. If you have not read Saga, read it because it's so delightful. I think it's got something for everybody in it, and it's so good. And it's been 2 years. It's been on hiatus, and I'm really just I need Saga to come back. So once again, Brian K. Vaughan, Fiona Staples. I know you're watching. Please give us more Saga soon. That's what I'd like to say. That's my closing out statement. Brian K. Vaughan, Fiona Staples, we miss Saga.
I also just want to mention, because you kind of said it in that sentence that you said, there's a comic for everyone. I remember hearing that for the first time on your channel and that, and I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. There's a comic for everyone in that. There's not just superheroes. There's indies. There's stories for everyone, and
Yeah.
a lot of things that we watch on TV is like adapted from an indie comic sometimes.
Yeah. And one of the things that I think like my mission is in this like comic book sphere is making like comics a place for everyone. And, you know, I think it's been a really long time. Comics have been here in its modern iteration for at least, 80 or so years. And I think that comics are starting to look like the world that we live in, whether that's the cast of the comic books or the creators who are writing and drawing them. So for me, like I think it's so important that people see themselves in comic books. I think that's like why we get drawn into them. So I think that my biggest thing, kind of going back to science, I really want to be like the Carl Sagan of comic books. And I'd really love to be like the Anthony Bourdain of comic book stores. That's like my mission. Like if I had like two people that I could just like, it'd be those two people and do it for comics.
That's awesome. I really enjoy watching you and just listening to you. Like you're so knowledgeable. Like and like you're not just saying half this stuff to make
Yeah.
yourself sound so you actually read all of this content, and it's just
Yeah.
like, and I just love it. And
Oh,
keep doing what you're doing, and thank you so much for coming on.
thank you so much for having me. You like are truly like comic book YouTube hype man. I absolutely love it. Seeing you in the chat, just like greeting all of the people coming in, and I know that like our missions are similar, right? Like just making the comic book community like welcoming, and like that's why I absolutely love what you are doing, because I can just tell there's so much passion and there's so much love there. So thank you, my dude. Thank you.
Station. Well, like I want people to know, like anytime they want like have a question, like anybody new coming into this
Yeah.
community, and that they can ask questions. Don't feel ashamed to ask questions, and
Hmm.
that if you want to know something, and that just hit us up, and that and we'll let you know. We want
Hmm.
people to feel welcome in this community and feel like they belong.
Yeah, and I love that, like in this community, I don't feel like there's a sense of competition. I mean, maybe it's like a little bit, like maybe people are like, oh, let's get to a certain subscriber count and things like that. But I love that this community is really just about bringing people in, and the more people that are in it, like the more people that are here. And, I'm so glad that there's not a, well, I can't talk about this week's comic books because there's 10 other channels that are talking about this week's comics. Like, we all just love comics, and like I just love that. I love that so much. I love hearing everyone's perspective, even if it differs from mine. That's the beauty of it, right?
Yeah, because people like have a different perspective on what they're reading as well, and that like
Mm,
one person may say this and another person may say that,
yeah.
and it's just great. So, but guys, this is Chatting with the Comic Community, episode 14. I think we just lost Jennifer, but that's all right. It was great to have her. Guys, but Whiplash Wednesday started over on station. Whiplash Wednesday started over on the hashtag Blame Fable channel on Instagram, where him and I chat with the community, show off what we picked up, and then invite other people in the community to jump on and show off what they have. And that lands us with here. After this show, go check out Nick Comic Culture's video haul video, where he's either at his shop or doing it from the safety of his home. Check it out to find out. Then after that, Big Herm Collectibles and Sam from Sam's Tangled Web will be chatting it up about Marvel. Not sure what they're talking about this week, but tune in and find out. Then I am so excited for this because over on Tomorrow Cinema's channel, we're doing the interview night where I'm co-hosting with him. So we'll have none other than Bearded Comic Bro, Sparks Comics, and a few other comic enthusiasts. I think Nick Comic Culture will also be there. But we have a stacked panel. We have Tony Fleece and Trish Forstner from Stray Dogs, as
Nice.
well as Bradley Golden from the writer of These Damn Kids that's coming out in October. Also, he's the CEO of Second Sight Publishing. Then we also have Justin Richards joining us as well from Finger Guns and his Kickstarter, A Silent Night. So you guys are not going to want to miss that. Station Jennifer, and thank you for stopping by.
Howdy, friends.
Hashtag howdy friends. Hashtag stay nerdy, my friends.